What is ISIS-K? Group behind Kabul airport attack. The terrorist group Islamic State Khorasan or ISIS-K has claimed responsibility for these attacks at the airport. The attack that killed the US Marines and dozens of others and derailed the ongoing Afghan evacuation to some extent, is a competitor of the Taliban, and even more extreme one. The ISIS-K attack wasn't aimed just at the Americans. It was also meant to embarrass the Taliban, experts said. The Islamic State Khorasan, or ISIS-K, is the Afghan offshoot of the Islamic State terror group, which publicly beheaded foreign journalists and inflicted brutalities on captured Kurds and others in Iraq and Syria. They have a higher proclivity to target civilians whom they regard as infidels, Seth G. a counterterrorism expert at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, said of ISIS-K. This attack will look bad to the West, but it makes the Taliban look as if they are not in control of their own environment, said Raffaello Pintussi, senior fellow at the International Center for Political Violence and Terrorism Research at the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies in Singapore. It undermines the idea that they rule this place. ISIS-K was formed around the fall of 2014. ISIS had sent representatives to both Pakistan and Afghanistan. They were essentially able to co-opt some disaffected Pakistan Taliban and a few Afghan Taliban to join their cause. Remember, this was around the time of the expansion of the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. So they have continued to operate. They grew in numbers for a while. And then they've come down. But their goal, really, is an Islamic emirate. And they are a competitor of both Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, Jones said. Based east of Kabul in the Kunar and the Nangarhar provinces near the Pakistani border, ISIS-K had anywhere from 1,500 to 2,200 fighters just 3 years ago, according to a study by the Center for Strategic and International Studies from 2018. It's unclear how many fighters ISIS-K has now, Jones said, because it's been on the receiving end of aggressive anti-terrorism operations by not only US and Afghan forces, but also the Taliban. The Taliban are fundamentally a Pashtun nationalist movement that is really focused on Afghanistan, Pintussi said. So a lot of the people ISIS-K tried to attract were people who had fallen out with the Taliban, so that was their way in. Jones agreed, saying ISIS-K is largely seen as an outsider. ISIS-K is still viewed as a foreign organization in Afghanistan, he said. The core ISIS-K group in Kunar consists mainly of Afghan and Pakistani nationals, while smaller groups located in Badakhshan, Kunduz and Saripol are predominantly made up of local ethnic Tajiks and Uzbeks. They're connected in some ways as a branch of broad ISIS, but they operate largely independently on a day-to-day basis, the Center for Strategic and International Studies study said. There is no love lost between ISIS-K and the Taliban, Pintussi said. They are competitive organizations. They are trying to appeal to the same recruits and the same funding sources. They are trying to build the same thing in different ways. ISIS-K and the Islamic State group were once allied with Al-Qaeda, the terrorist group once led by Osama bin Laden that was behind the September 11, 2001, attacks and which was in Afghanistan under Taliban protection at the time. They all come out of the same jihadist pool, Jones said. All favor some kind of Sharia, or Islamic law, and oppose democracy, as well as equal rights for women and non-Sunnis. While the Taliban are a populist movement focused almost exclusively on Afghanistan, the goal of ISIS-K is to build an Islamic caliphate across the Middle East and Asia that would include Afghanistan, the experts said. Unlike the Taliban, who solidified their position by retaking control of Afghanistan at lightning speed, ISIS-K is trying to reassert itself, and one way of doing so, Jones said, is by launching a high-profile attack. Whether they can use the current situation in Afghanistan to stage a resurgence is an open question, he said.